Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and you're watching the Libertarian View YouTube channel. This is a YouTube channel where libertarians of any stripe can post their videos. So if you're a libertarian looking to post your video on this channel, just contact me at alexmerced@alexmerced.com or contact me through the channel. And this video is going to be the introductory video to the channel, What is a Libertarian? So if you're someone who's wondering what is a libertarian, this is the video for you. Well, first let's talk about what is not a libertarian. Okay, so you often hear about the right-left divide, progressive versus conservatives. Now, the debate between progressives and conservatives is a little bit different than the debate among libertarians. Okay, progressives and conservatives both feel that there's a reasonable role for government of varying sizes. The difference is they're both trying to use government to create or preserve a certain institutional framework. And when I say institutions and organizations, I'm referring to how we do education, how we do health, how does society organize itself. They both have a particular view. Okay, now progressives, okay, they believe that the current institutions don't maximize the values that they think society should be organizing around, which is typically egalitarianism or equality. And equality will mean different things to different progressives, but it's typically along the lines of like equality far as access to basic things, equality far as tolerance, equality for such things. And they believe that pursuing these goals, that government is a just tool in pursuing those goals, because they believe that those goals are just in themselves. Okay, so that's sort of the point of view of a progressive. So the ends justifies the means when it comes to these sort of ideologies, progressive and conservative. Now, conservative, on the other hand, they believe that the traditional institutions, the institutions that have existed, were better, and they're not a big fan of a lot of the changes. Okay, so their thing is to defend the current existing institutions. So this is like people who are saying, you know, let's defend institutions of marriage, let's defend the way the education system works now, certain things. And again, sometimes on certain issues, people who call themselves progressives may be conservative on that issue, and other people who call themselves conservative may be progressive on that issue. The way I think about it is, progressive, you want to kind of change from where we are now. Conservative, you want to kind of go back to where we were. And again, it's not to say that one is better than the other. The point is they both have sort of a particular set of institutions or way that society should organize, and they're okay with letting government sort of push people in that direction. Okay, in different ways. Usually categorize progressives as people who progressives are more sort of for your civil liberties, sort of your ability to free speech, to your social freedom, although they get involved in that in a lot of ways as well. Okay, in the sense of let's put it this way: they are willing to affect the values of your people by saying you can't be quote unquote mean. Let's put it that way. Okay? And then conservatives usually are characterized as more economically free, but less socially free. And again, I think that's more of a situation of, again, old institutions versus new institutions. America, in its beginning, was definitely a lot more economically tolerant. It was definitely a society built on free enterprise, but the social liberties took time to develop, even though there was some very hardcore ones in the beginning, such as religious freedom, separation of church and state as far as religion goes, the freedom of speech, freedom to bear arms. So there was a lot of social liberties in the beginning, but a lot of others didn't develop till later. So this is where you kind of end up having a progressive conservative divide. But again, bottom line is government is a tool to preserve these sort of institutional views of the world. Now, what is a libertarian? A libertarian does not believe that there's any particular right institution, that there's some perfect way for society to organize themselves. Well, they may believe that there's a perfect way, but they don't believe that there's a humility in libertarianism, in the sense that no one person can know how society should work, and since no one person, even no small group of people, can understand how society could work, because you don't know the motivations, the incentives, the intentions of every individual to properly organize it. So in that case, a top-down organization, central planning, these things whether ethically or practically, just aren't good ideas. Okay? So in this case, whether libertarians have a varying degrees of how they see the role of government, depending on what kind of libertarian you are, but they don't believe what they all would agree on was government should not be a tool to force values on any group, whether it be conservative or progressive values. Government isn't the place to demonstrate those values. The place to make the case is the market, where people aren't forced to have those values, but they get to choose to have those values. Okay, so in the sense, the libertarian wants people to make the case that their values are better, and if they are better, people will choose to adopt them, and then you have this competitive process to weigh the values that best represent society and will thus best help society organize. Basically, they want behavior to be as voluntary as possible in the libertarian world. Okay, it's not necessarily about what the immediate outcomes are, because over time, voluntary behavior will weed out those that serve society the least. And sometimes, and also a lot of times, it's not obvious that someone is serving society. Okay, someone in their self-interest can end up serving society more than someone who's not acting in their self-interest, and this can be visible several times, and it's hard to anticipate when this will be the case and when this won't be the case. Again, there's just a lot of things that can't be perfectly predefined, and if you use government to sort of restrict things and put very static barriers on how society can organize itself, you limit the possibilities of all the dynamic institutions that voluntary behavior can create. So this is sort of what the libertarian point of view is. People should just be free. Okay, so when it comes to your economic life, you should be free. When it comes to your social life, you should be free. Why? Because it's impossible to say that anyone really knows better. Okay, in any kind of objectively provable way. Now, libertarians fall into different categories. You have just the broad term libertarians, which just refers to sort of anybody who just kind of believes in freedom. You know, whether you should that you should be free in your economic life and in your social life, that government shouldn't necessarily should intervene as little as possible or not at all in your life. But they do fall under a left-right spectrum as well in the libertarian community. There's those libertarians who believe that the traditional institutions are better, and then there's those libertarians that believe newer institutions are needed. But they don't believe that government should be the one to where that fight should be fought. They believe that it should be fought by the market, by people who have an idea for a better institution, to create a business or create a non-profit and see if they can make a go of it. Okay, so if you believe in sort of, if you're a left libertarian, you would believe in things like social justice, egalitarianism, combating intolerance, etc. But again, you don't believe government's the correct tool, but through voluntary action, education, outreach, etc. If you're in the sort of a right libertarian, then maybe you want to preserve sort of traditional social norms, but you don't think the government should be in the job of doing it. You believe that you should do it by promoting the benefits and the virtues of pursuing those values through outreach, evangelism, etc. Then there's constitutional libertarians. This is sort of more particular to the United States. We have libertarians who believe that the U.S. Constitution had a pretty decent description of what the role of government should be. And generally these are sort of strict constructionists of the Constitution, that basically the Constitution mandated a very limited, small scope federal government, and that you can achieve libertarian ends by pursuing and using the Constitution as leverage to get there. Okay, minarchists are people who believe in a super minimal role of government. Basically that the government's job isn't to dictate how society organizes, it's just to maintain an environment where society can organize. And the way they do this is by basically only doing two things. Okay? Law and defense. They have a legal system that enforces property rights, so that way people can have just transfers of property, enforce contracts, etc. So you have a legal system that allows people to coordinate with each other, because a lot of times when you coordinate with another individual, you're going to want contract signs, you're going to want that contract honored, and if you don't believe that contract will be honored, if there isn't a legal system in place, you'll be less likely to enter those contracts, less likely to enter commerce, and it'll be harder for society to organize itself. And then a defense system, so that way exogenous forces like people who live outside of sort of this zone, who may not necessarily be as friendly to freedom, don't necessarily interrupt that area, so that way that free society can continue to organize. So basically law and defense, that's sort of the minarchist point of view. Government should do nothing else. Okay, and anarcho-capitalist goes even further, where they even think that things like law and defense can be left to the market, and not necessarily even to the market, but to other private institutions, whether they be non-profits, churches, etc., other people, and can be done competitively. It doesn't have to necessarily be centrally planned. Could be the amalgam of a lot of small groups all working in conjunction, having a big effect. So for defense and for law and for everything else. So an anarcho-capitalist would believe that there is nothing that the market couldn't handle hypothetically. Okay? So generally you'll find a libertarian in one of these sort of, again, in the broad sense, libertarians have a varying degree. You could have libertarians that sort of believe in medium to big government, but again, just believe in government staying out of the way. Though that's, I wouldn't imagine many libertarians believing in big government, but usually you can go from sort of medium to small to non-existent, okay, in the libertarian universe. What ties us together is our belief that you should be free to run your business and you should be free to live your life. Now here's a list of major libertarian books. So if you want to learn more about libertarianism, these would be the books to read. The Ethics of Liberty by Murray Rothbard, Liberalism by Ludwig von Mises, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, Anarchy, the State, Utopia by Robert Nozick, Revolution, a Manifesto by Ron Paul, Constitution of Liberty by F.A. Hayek, Free to Choose by Milton Friedman, The Machinery of Freedom by David Friedman. Major libertarian websites: Mises.org, home of the Mises Institute, which is sort of a major thought tank, libertarian and economic thought tank. So if you want to learn economics and libertarianism, that would be the place to go. Cato.org, they're sort of a libertarian think tank for policy, so they try to affect policy over there in the Washington D.C. area. LearnLiberty.org, just a general libertarian philosophy, economic, etc. Education page. Merced.org, another sort of research think tank / center, mainly focusing on like free markets and free enterprise. Reason.tv, a age-old libertarian publication. There's a magazine, but this is the online sort of TV, video, podcast channel. It's really awesome. And there's Libertarian 101. This is actually my YouTube playlist where I have a bunch of videos where I talk about libertarian issues, libertarian philosophy, etc. Okay, so my name is Alex Merced. This is the introductory video for the Libertarian View YouTube channel. Again, if you're a libertarian who would like to upload commentary, educational videos, etc., do contact me. That way you can add your videos to this channel. Have a great day and enjoy.